Welcome back to NatChat, the Natilik podcast. My name is Rob Thor, and today we're delving into the always interesting world of cybersecurity. Palo Alto Networks continue to further their already impressive credentials as a leader in the cybersecurity space in the last 12 months, with countless awards, significant growth and acquisitions, as well as some standout client success stories. We sat down to discuss how they've seen a shift in priorities and strategy for enterprises, as well as touching on some differing approaches to SecOps, and how Palo Alto are continuing to ensure that they're best positioned to support the seemingly inevitable cloud-first future. I had a great time speaking with Adrian, Stuart and James. There's some really great real-life examples and stories to help contextualise some of the topics we discussed, and I think you'll really enjoy this one. It's Wednesday, February 24th, and this is the Natilik podcast. All right, very excited today to be joined by a full house of guests on the Natilik podcast. Starting off, we've got two of the best and brightest from Palo Alto Networks. Adrian, Tisi, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, very well, thank you, Rob.
Good. And Stuart Taylor. Stuart, hello.
Hello, Rob. Good to see you. / hear you.
/ hear me. Yeah, you can kind of see me, although we are having a few networking connectivity issues, so but that granted. And then finally, last but not least, we have Natilik's own James Nunn. How's it going, James?
Afternoon, Rob. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. Good stuff. So, listen, we've got a great show lined up for you today. We're going to be focusing on digital transformation in the cybersecurity space. But before we dive into the discussion, I'm going to start, as always, by getting to know our guests a little bit better. So I'll begin with our good friends at Palo Alto. Stuart, would you mind telling us a little bit about your role and what you do?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Rob. I'm the channel director for the UK and Ireland at Palo Alto Networks. I've been with the company for about 2.5 years now, and I look after all of the engagements across our channels for that region, which includes all of our GSI engagements, service providers, partners, MSSPs, distributors, everything that we do with our channel partnerships.
Wow. So no mean feat. I imagine it's a lot of responsibility. And then, Adrian, how about you, my friend? What keeps you busy on a day-to-day basis?
You guys mostly, I have to say,
I like to hear.
in a good way. So Adrian Tisi, I'm one of the channel business managers in Stuart's Western European channel team. I look after a number of our development partners in the UK, so Natilik being one of them. Very much working alongside you guys to build the business together and see how we can help our customers improve their security.
Nice. And James, I've been particularly excited to get you on there. No professional bias, me and my sales background, but let's come to you.
I'm not quite sure why, Rob. I mean, you kind of feel like you're building me up for failure here, but James Nunn, account director in the London Enterprise team. I've been at Natilik nearly 6 years now. So it's been been interesting time seeing how we've grown over that period. Started in the commercial team and then stepped up into enterprise a few years back. And what keeps me busy? Clients. I only look after Natilik clients. I don't do any new business or anything like that. So full account management, farming, and all that. And it's it's been interesting times recently. So staying busy.
Yeah, I'm hoping we'll get onto that a little bit later, because I think that is particularly why I'm so excited, is to actually get the insight into kind of conversations that our clients are having at the moment. But we'll start with Palo Alto Networks, and it's safe to say 2020 was a really strong year for you guys again. I think once again confirmed as a leader in pretty much every space that you play, some interesting acquisitions, as well as continuing to develop your existing portfolio. But Stuart and Adrian, what would you say stood out to you as a key takeaway from the year now that you've had a chance to reflect on it?
So I think a couple of things, Rob, that we've certainly seen as a trend. And you're right, it's been a great year for us. I think there's been also strong growth in cybersecurity across the board, but as an organisation, we've broadened out our platform and we've enabled a lot of customers to be more secure than the day they were before, or where they're at the day before. So that's a very positive thing that we can match our mission statement. I think the things that we're seeing, we're in unprecedented times, so we've got to touch on the pandemic and what challenges that's brought to customers, and clearly standing up remote access for remote workers securely as quickly as possible, to a lot of businesses an unprecedented number of remote workers. And I think I heard somebody say the other day that they'd gone from 40 to 50 remote workers, 40 to 50 remote workers, going up to 300 within a day, and that was one of our customers. And I think that that's what a lot of organisations have experienced, that challenge of ensuring that they can operate their businesses during a pandemic. And what that's actually also seen in parallel is an acceleration of their journey to the cloud. So making sure that they utilise the technologies that are available in the cloud, the movement of applications, accessing new markets, etc., and making sure that their organisations are acting as efficiently and effectively as possible, and doing so in a secure fashion. So that's where we've had a lot of conversations with our customers, and leading into that, a lot of that's been around the acceleration, I guess, of a zero trust approach as well from a number of customers across how they operate entirely. And I think that we've got a number of our CISOs telling us that it's quite difficult out there. There are more bad actors and more attack surfaces, and they have to operate in a state of assumed breach. And therefore, in order to do that, they have to approach that zero trust methodology.
We actually hear quite a lot, don't we, around customers accelerating their digital transformation initiatives and their shift to cloud. But if you dig under the covers, what's really behind that is that a lot of companies we talk to are really being forced to reevaluate and redefine the ways in which they're operating, innovating, and maintaining business continuity, not just to survive in a really difficult environment right now, but to establish where they can drive competitive advantage. So leveraging technologies like cloud and AI, machine learning, we're seeing being looked at more than ever before as enablers. As Stuart touched on, I think that combination of shift to cloud and a rapid shift to remote working, fundamentally what we're seeing is that that attack surface has spread enormously. Customers are looking at making sure their employees are able to connect to any of their applications and data wherever those staff are and wherever those applications and data are. And that creates a lot of challenge. The point I would add to that is that, if you look at what Gartner suggests that around 55% of customers have more than 25 security products, and it's not unusual for a new use case to pop up and a product be implemented to solve a particular problem at a point in time. But that approach we don't feel is really sustainable. So one of the other things that we've really seen in the past year are customers looking at the change in the environment to really reevaluate what they're doing from both a networking and security perspective, and looking at what technologies they can deliver from the cloud to give them a much greater level of agility than they've ever had before.
Yeah, that's interesting. One thing I'm particularly interested in hearing from you guys as well is, we've had guests ranging from sort of all parts of the technology landscape, whether it be data center, collaboration, contact center, and now obviously you guys to discuss security and networking. Would you say, I know in those spaces specifically, people have gone from reacting and sort of the survive mentality to trying to thrive in the new world. Would you say it's the same in security now? I'd imagine it's mostly just accelerated the conversation that you were already having, right, in terms of that migration from on-prem to cloud and things like that. Are those type of conversations still happening now? Are people looking to what the workplace of the future is and things like that when it comes to security?
Yeah, one of the things I would say that we see, Rob, is that as customers have really accelerated some of those initiatives, security is often left behind. We see a real mix of customers, I would say, between those where those innovative new technologies, the rise of DevOps, developing new applications and services to deliver really quickly to try to thrive. Security is often the piece that catches up. So many of the conversations we're having with customers now is how do we integrate security much earlier within those initiatives? And enable security to become a true business enabler, not just something to plug gaps which potentially come out later on through the cycle. That's something I would say is really gathering some pace right now as customers look at true transformation, is how do we integrate security much earlier in that cycle?
Yeah, no, I think Adrian's right on that front. The CISOs that we speak to and we get feedback from consistently, I think we had a scenario where before this quicker acceleration to the cloud occurred, that that cybersecurity had started to properly be on the mind of boards of companies. And again, with this movement and acceleration and changes that are required in the last year or so, there's been a piece where they've been having to take advantage of these technologies, but that hasn't necessarily been in line with the security that they've had in their on-premise infrastructures. And there's been a speed requirement for that. And Adrian's quite right in that we can help customers integrate security into the life cycle of what they do. And to that point, from a cloud perspective, we just made a recent acquisition to do just that and take a bet on that shift left approach with a company called Bridge Crew. We've acquired that technology to put that into our cloud security piece of Prisma Cloud. So that's definitely something that we're looking to do. The other thing, it's challenging for them because there's a well acknowledged, I should say, skill shortage in the market for cybersecurity people. And as a consequence, I think it's recognised that with the statistic that Adrian says, about 55% of organisations having over 25 security vendors, that's increasingly difficult to manage. With increasing attack surfaces and a lack of integrated tools, there's more and more volumes of alerts, increases in false positives. It's more difficult to detect things and to remediate them. I think that integrated and automated approach is what's needed, because you can't just keep adding more people to get to the problem, because there aren't those people as well. So it's an unsustainable loop that occurs. So definitely we need to help customers in terms of integrating and automating to enable them to deliver a security posture that works for their business.
There's an additional point to that. I would also add in. The cyber threat landscape has really changed in the past year. We've seen probably phishing attacks absolutely go through the roof. Accenture mentioned it's something like a 68.9% increase in phishing attacks since the coronavirus outbreak started. I think we've probably all experienced it, right? We're in a business now where our own security team will test our staff, and we'll talk about cybersecurity predictions for the coming year. And one of them, Greg talks about, our CISO talks about employee fatigue, for example. You could very easily inadvertently click on a link, and before you know it, you're exposed. Okay, so we're starting to see, tied into a real shift in the cyber threat landscape, and back to Stuart's point about the lack of skilled cybersecurity resources, that leads to a much greater demand in leveraging AI and machine learning technologies to automate as much as you possibly can, to take away that burden from customers, but improve that threat posture entirely, and really try to free up the time for some of the more sophisticated threats that are being developed, because we've seen some of those come through fairly recently. And that seems to be very high on many of our customers' agendas. It's not just having that first line of defense, it's also looking at the advanced threat hunting, how they can automate detection, investigation, and response, and really free up those resources to start looking at other things potentially that they haven't done before around security process improvement, building kind of playbooks for how they deal and how they evolved with the evolving threat landscape as well. So it's quite it feels to me, from my experience, like a rapidly shifting market, where we're seeing customers really wake up to that and look at how can they leverage those technologies to both improve their security posture and also, overcome the challenge they have with the lack of resources out in the market today.
And you guys, I think at Palo, you guys have like only a so like 8-person SOC team that looks after your entire business. And it's, when you guys talk around the skills shortage and the different amounts of technologies that are out there, and this kind of traditional view that you should have security in layers with all these different solutions, I think actually the past year and security teams having to suddenly really manage those solutions effectively and consistently, they've kind of realized, how much fatigue is involved in doing that. Whereas you guys as an organization have, like I said, like 8 or 10 people who manage security for the whole business of thousands of people. And is a great example of actually you can achieve the same thing by actually putting your faith in a vendor that is doing great stuff in the market, and has the solutions to back up their claims, and that should be considered by clients. And I do think there is a bit of a shift back towards, well, maybe we can utilize a sort of a core vendor for a number of security solutions and maybe augment certain things, but not that we have to have 20 different vendors for 20 different security problems.
You are quite right, James, in that approach, and actually it's really helpful for us as a team to be able to showcase that to a number of our customers, whether they're existing or prospective, to show them how we operate using our technologies through our small SOC team, as you quite rightly point out, through utilising what Adrian said before, machine learning, AI, and automating as much as we possibly can. Utilising that workbook strategy through XOR that we have that enables us to automate the repetitive tasks that are required by the analysts to enable them to go and threat hunt and do those active things to make sure that the posture for our business is as secure as it possibly can be. And I think that is really something that's resonating with a lot of organisations out there as well. That they need not just potentially those solutions that do that for them, but they often need to consume it as a service as well, because they also haven't got the staff to be able to operate it. So at the moment, I think we're seeing a rise in the requirements for an integrated cybersecurity platform that offers lots of different areas to protect across your endpoint, your network, and your cloud infrastructure, automating as much of it as possible, but also potentially delivering that as a service, because it's very difficult for them to operate themselves in many cases.
Yeah, and I think one of the added benefits of taking that approach with as a service means that from my perspective in my job, actually it's quite easy to get to a point where it's validated for the client, because we do a proof of value or a proof of concept, because it's as a service rather than having to buy a load of tin or whatever, and actually it means that clients get to see relatively quickly the value of what you guys can offer, and again, that's just that speed is what's been key, again, in the current climate. No one wants to be waiting around for months and months for this stuff. So
I think one of the interesting things that we've seen in the industry in the past few years is the real rise of technology that's creating so many alerts for security analysts or SOC teams to do something with. And one of the challenges that customers face quite often is the fact that not only is there a shortage of skilled cybersecurity resources out in the industry, a lot of them are kind of stuck in that tier one activity of trying to aggregate alerts from a multitude of different sources to try to work out where the real threats are. You mentioned our own SOC there, James, as well. We actually don't have a tiering system within our own SOC. If you can have the technology that can do all of that initial investigation and create security incidents for you, you're taking away 90% of the work, of the manual repetitive tasks right from the very start. So the teams still spend some of their time on the more advanced threats, so they still have to do that to a degree, but it frees up, they would work to what they would call a thirds model, a third spent on investigating the more advanced threats, on more advanced threat hunting, but very, very focused on security process improvements as well. And that piece around not having those different tiers, one of the parts of feedback we often see it. We probably see this more in public sector than in private sector, but it's certainly not specific to public sector, is that those that are in tier one, what's their own ambition? What are their career goals? They want to move up the chain, right? They want to become tier two, tier three analysts. If they're doing that menial, repetitive job day after day, where are they likely to end up? And it's a real challenge for organizations to retain those staff long term, because where they are deployed and doing those repetitive tasks day after day, if they can go somewhere where they can do the things they really want to do, which is the more advanced threat hunting, and get involved in that side of things, that just makes for a much more productive and long-term workforce, because we do see that churn in the industry of skilled analysts moving from organization to organization. So, from an efficiency point of view, from just the cost point of view as well, it takes 6 months, I think, roughly, to skill up a SOC analyst into any organization. So there's real scope to not only look at that from a security posture point of view, but look at that in terms of workforce retention and motivation, to really purpose them on where they feel they can deliver most value to the business.
Yeah, you're basically just trying to save some people from a lifetime of boredom, because they are absolutely fed up of having to do task after task after task. And then they've probably been stuck at home as well on their own for the last year doing that as well. Can you imagine? I don't blame them. I really don't blame them. So yeah, if you can help those guys as well, I'm sure that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. And we're actually currently in the stages of planning a podcast where we're going to be talking a bit more detail about the cybersecurity skills gap, I think, with my colleague Hayley Knott and some of your colleagues over at Palo Alto Networks as well. So yeah, it should be a really interesting conversation. Keep your eyes and ears out for that one coming up. James, you mentioned it in passing a little bit there, but I'm keen to hear a little bit from you on the conversations you're having. You've obviously gone through the enforced changes this time last year, where clients are reacting to the changes and the lockdown and things like that. But also, you've been, probably since we started partnering with Palo Alto Networks over 3 years ago now, probably had the most experience of working with our clients in Palo Alto. So would you be able to talk a little bit about sort of that transition, the journey, the way that the conversations have changed a little bit, and maybe give us a couple of examples, or an example of where, again, you've seen some success in Palo Alto?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, I mean, just in general, in terms of like the last year and what we've seen, it's been incredibly polarizing. You look at just the general population, and personal life. People are at their healthiest. People are also at their unhealthiest. There's like a baby boom coming, but there's also like highest rates of divorce. It's incredible what two ends of the spectrum we've seen from the pandemic, and it's no different in my line of work as well. There have been a lot of clients who've kind of gone for an innovate or die approach and hit the bleeding edge as quickly as possible. We've seen projects ramp up. We've seen budgets suddenly become available. But conversely, we've also seen clients that almost completely ground to a halt in terms of what they were planning to do, and were very much more a sort of steady eddy in terms of how they wanted to progress. Certainly through the 2020, I would say. For a lot of those clients, they already had the infrastructure and some of the solutions in place, which meant that they didn't need to act quickly, especially some of the larger enterprises. But I think sort of what some of the first security deals that were being done at the beginning of the pandemic last year were this requirement to adapt very quickly to remote working environment with what was 300 people remote to suddenly 3,000 people remote overnight, and the firewalls were taking a bashing. So what do we do? In terms of the Palo relationship, but big fan of Palo. We have traditionally been a very Cisco focused house, but Palo is a very credible vendor. And has some really interesting solutions in the security space, and I was very keen to pick up the relationship when it began and work with it, and talk to my clients about something else. And there's a lot of what Palo do that resonated with the problems that my clients had and still have today. So it's been good. It's been refreshing. It's nice to work with the guys that we get on well, and it always helps when there's a good technology solution behind it. So yeah, I mean one particular client that I've been working with for well, basically since the start of that Palo relationship. Large investment house, 30 odd billion dollars under management in terms of assets, and they were working with a alternate firewall provider, not one that we provide, and they basically tried to conduct a firmware upgrade and took out the entire business, and an organization whose sort of income is based upon their ability to trade, not having connectivity is a pretty bad thing. So they kind of stumbled through that for several months while we tried to work with them on an alternative solution, and Palo stood out head and shoulders above the rest. And it the way in which they approach things, it's a strategic relationship. It's multi-year. They wanted to commit to not just the vendor and that particular solution, but what does the next 10 years look like? And we started with the firewalls. We moved into Prisma Access last year, and that was always on the cards, but it definitely was sped up in terms of obviously the need for everyone to be remote and how to secure those people. They had looked at Global Protect, but with one eye on speed, it was clear, again, as I mentioned earlier, the ability to do the proof of value and get a trial proof of concept going pretty quickly. There was the speed in terms of that, but there's also the speed of the network itself. Prism Access is built upon Google's network at the back end, with all of the fantastic stuff that Palo do over the top of it, and they were going from a private MPLS to a public internet network, and it was 4 times faster. So they've been mightily impressed with how they could speed up connectivity but also do it securely. And hopefully phase 3 will be moving into I say phase 2.5 will be Prism Access 2.0, which is literally just been announced and will hopefully come out very soon. And there's some interesting
Spoilers.
updates to the there's some interesting updates to the platform that will that they want to look at. And then again, long term SD-WAN, Cloud Genix, which was another great acquisition by Palo Alto. How does that play into it, and how does that integrate with the wider estate, especially for those guys with the files and Prism Access? So yeah, it's exciting, and that's a very repeatable story across a number of clients that I've got, and that's always good from a sales perspective.
I'd love to pick up on the fact that James points out there that our joint engagement with customers it's a journey that we go on together with our customers. We don't have the situation where we'll choose work with them on one area. We look to work with them in a strategic fashion, as James points out, how we can help them develop their digital transformation journeys securely. And we can help them provide that through the platform, across the endpoint, the network and cloud, so that we can give them that holistic approach that is integrated, automated and simple from a cybersecurity perspective. Now, that means that they can rely on our partnership, Natilik and Palo Alto Networks, to deliver on the majority of things they need from a cybersecurity perspective, which enables them to manage it easily, but again, deliver probably the most secure cybersecurity posture they can have, but equally with a forward mind to innovation. I think what's important is, we've mentioned already some of the acquisitions that we've made in the market. We're a highly innovative company as well, and as the attack surfaces become more frequent, or there are more and more of them, there are more bad actors, and there are also new technologies that customers want to take advantage of. We're ensuring that we innovate quickly. And if you look at our acquisition strategy, we tended to be ahead of the market quite a lot. So we're seeing where things are going, and we're making those acquisitions to ensure that we can help customers in their digital transformation journeys as soon as they need to be assisted, right? And I think that that's an important fact, that we should be innovative in this space, because the bad actors are certainly innovative, and equally there are other new technologies coming out all the time that customers could take advantage of, and we need to be able to help them do that securely.
It always feels like not a week goes by that there isn't a high-profile cybersecurity attack, whether it be sort of locally or in the news. So, and you mentioned it. So, Nunn, you mentioned there sort of Prisma Access 2.0. I wanted to finish off by just taking a look, maybe into the future a little bit more, just to see what's coming up with Palo Alto. So, Stuart, you've mentioned obviously the Bridge Crew acquisition. Prisma Access 2.0, I think that's next month, right? That's landing. Would you guys mind talking a little bit about
this month?
This month. Oh, there you go, even better. Would you guys be able to sort of give us a little bit of detail there? What clients can look forward to?
Yeah, sure. So the Prisma Access, I'll start by just talking through and adding to what James said earlier. Prisma Access has been a phenomenal solution for us and our customers, and it really helped, obviously, during the pandemic, stand things up quickly. And I mentioned earlier one of our customers that was talking going from sort of 30 or 40 remote workers to what they would have termed sort of 300 offices. But it's even more scalable than that. One of our reference cases is Schlumberger, where they scaled from 25,000 users to 80,000 users in a matter of days. And James is right, it's using that Google backbone. So, what I think we're helping people to do now is there's enhancements of the technology in Prisma Access. So cloud delivered management is coming in Prisma Access 2.0. And we're also bringing in some proxy capability so that we can help customers migrate from the legacy solutions that they have that are often intertwined and fairly complex in their infrastructure. And they've not previously been able to take advantage of that flow-based security that Prisma Access can deliver. So we're enabling them to do that by implementing some proxy-based technology that enables us to help them transition to that point and take advantage of a proper SASE solution and make their journey to that and all the benefits that obviously that will derive for them. We're also very pleased to say that in the current form and our from a WAN edge perspective, we've recently been given the top scores from a Gartner Peer Insight perspective as well. So that sort of builds up to our overall SASE play, along with Prisma Access 2.0 and Cloud Genix. But yeah, so it would actually be this month, Rob. I think that the Prisma Access 2.0 is launched.
Yeah, I would just add to that to say, look, since Gartner started talking about SASE a while back, you've seen a lot of vendors talk about their SASE capabilities. What I would say is that we would encourage customers to have a really close look at the technology. We're happy to run demos, proof of concepts, to really underline the fact that we believe we have a real depth of capability. Often it starts with one particular use case, such as secure remote working or secure branch access, for example. But because of the extent of capability in the platform as a whole, that's where we feel there's a real power of the portfolio across the board in terms of the breadth of capability, because it often starts with one use case, but where we often find this delivers real value to customers is where they can start to see over a period of time how they can consolidate a number of different products into that one overriding platform. There's probably a couple of other points. I mean, it's if you think of one aspect of Prisma Access under the covers, has all of the same features and functionality as our physical and virtual firewalls. So we have a lot of customers who have deployments that incorporate both physical firewalls, virtual, containerized, and cloud delivered, all managed under one management platform with Panorama. One of the enhancements with Prisma Access 2.0 is a real enhancement in the cloud management capabilities, because we're seeing a real drive for that as well. So the point for me really is there's a lot of depth of capability in the platform, which we're more than happy to demonstrate to customers who want to dig under the covers and see how that would fit for their specific environment. But it is a platform we're continuing to invest in quite significantly to make sure we can maximise that value for our customers in the long term.
Yeah, and another exciting area with the Prisma Access 2.0 launch is the capability for security around IoT. So what's also quite exciting about that is the ability of the technology to auto-discover IoT devices in the environment and then suggest security policies to deploy. I think, to Adrian's point earlier, the integration of the technologies is what enables customers to deliver things like zero trust policies within the environment. It's very difficult to do that if you can't see where everything is and you haven't got enforcement points and so forth. So the integration of things like Prisma Access with Prisma Cloud or with on-prem next generation firewalls and having that ability to deliver the same policy across that is really important to help our customers deliver that robust cybersecurity posture for their environment. And Adrian again is quite right. We'd happily proof of concept or happily demo the product to show what it's capable of, how it can help those customers, how it can potentially integrate other areas. We're launching another piece around Cloud Blade technology that assists on integration with other security tools as well in the environment. I think coming back around again to part of the conversation that we had around our SOC in terms of utilising Palo Alto Networks' core technologies and then adding some small bits and pieces in that help deliver the entire posture. And I think that's something that we recognise as an organisation as well and want to be able to do within the solutions that we offer.
Yeah, definitely. And I think included in the show notes is going to be a link to our managed trial that we're running with Palo Alto Networks for Prisma Access as well. So any listeners that are interested in that, I'd certainly point them in that direction as well. But I think that ties up quite nicely with that call to action, gents.
Can I just make one more comment, Rob, if that's all right? Because
I will allow it. Stuart.
Thank you very much. I think Prisma Access is about delivering consistent, exceptional end user experience, and I think this is currently a challenge with a lot of other offerings in the market, and they need to combine a lot of different solutions together and services together to deliver the same consistent, secure remote connectivity that Prisma Access does. And it's that really defines what outcomes the customers can experience by that exceptional end user experience that they have not been receiving often from other solutions.
Yeah, and I can echo that. I would say that the feedback from clients who've kind of seen, experienced and proceeded with Prisma Access, it stands out as unique. I'm not sure sort of in the market as a whole in everything that's available how unique it is, but certainly from a top tier vendor it appears to stand head and shoulders above others, like you said, especially because if you want to achieve the same thing elsewhere you have to combine a number of solutions, and that just contributes to the other problems that we talked about. So
yeah, the facts are out there, right? The Gartner reports, it's all there to back it up. So definitely. Stuart, James, Adrian, it's been an absolute pleasure. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rob. Good to see you, James, as well.
Thank you, Rob.
Cheers, Mr. Thor. Always a pleasure. Thanks, Stuart. Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks for listening to NatChat, the Natilik podcast. Please subscribe to the Natilik podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. And leave us a review while you're there. It really helps us improve and grow the show. Please note that opinions expressed on the Natilik podcast are those of the hosts or our guests, not the organisations that they represent. You can find more information on Natilik on our website, that's natilik.com. You can also find us on social media. On Twitter, we're at Natilik Group, as well as Facebook and LinkedIn. Our theme music was provided by Dan Short, who you can find at Danzer, that's DANZR, on music streaming services. This is Rob Thor, and thanks again for listening.